So the Chibnall era is finally over, and with that ends the 13th Doctor's era. Now that the 13th Doctor is over, I will be ranking every Doctor from worst to best. I will be taking Big Finish into consideration as well for my list, not just the show. Also, keep in mind I've not heard every Big Finish story ever, which could affect my list a bit. And if I heard those stories, maybe these Doctors could be higher or lower. I would say my list, this is like a definitive list unless I hear a new Big Finish story, and that Big Finish story changes my mind on how I feel about that certain Doctor. Spoilers for everything Doctor Who, and with that all out of the way.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination.
Quick honorable mention goes to the Fugitive Doctor. I know a lot of fans really liked her, but she wasn't on screen enough for me to care about her, and I don't know where she is from the timeline. It's another plot device Chibs never fleshed out, of course, but I thought she was fine and seemed like a better Doctor than 13, but she doesn't have enough screen time for me to say where she ranks. I just hope she isn't pre-Hartnell, because anyone that's a pre-Hartnell Doctor moving forward, like if they decide to say the Timeless Children, explore it some more or whatever, that will automatically go last on my list. Like I can't. The Timeless Children I just really do not like, and in my headcanon, pre-Hartnells do not exist. William Hartnell is the first and only Doctor. But yeah, all right, on to the list. Coming in at number 14, I have the 13th Doctor. Just getting this out of the way right now. It's not because she's a woman. I'm fine with the Doctor being a female. I thought it could be something very interesting, but Chibnall did not make it interesting. The reason why I don't like the 13th Doctor is because it's the way she is written. Jodie's performance as the Doctor could be an issue too, but it's mainly the way Chibnall wrote the Doctor and everything she did. And in my opinion, the way that he wrote the 13th Doctor was a problem. In my opinion, she doesn't really feel like the Doctor as well, almost at all to me. And there's even video compilations out there that show how uncharacteristic she is like the Doctor. I think the most egregious example of her not really feeling like the Doctor is when she lets that old man die in the Timeless Children episode. She lets someone else sacrifice themselves for her, and I thought that was just very out of character for the Doctor. And that's just one of many examples. And you also have the one with, it's another famous one where Graham talks about his cancer, and the 13th Doctor's like, oh well, I'm socially awkward. And then it's just like the Doctor wouldn't respond like that to her own companion or fam. Oh jeez, I don't like the use of fam either. That's another thing Chibs decided to do. Why is fam even a thing? That's just very strange. Just leave it at companions. There was no reason to change it to fam. But yeah, the Doctor basically told Graham she was too socially awkward to handle that situation about her cancer, which is, it felt very uncharacteristic. The Doctor has shown to be socially awkward and very cold and very distant in the past, especially the first Doctor. The Doctor would not regress to her first Doctor self. That's kind of strange, but she wouldn't do that to her own companion. I would understand if she did that to a stranger. I think that's something the 12th Doctor had a problem with, being a little bit socially awkward with situations and kind of lacked empathy sometimes. Other Doctors have that problem too, but saying that to her own companion, that's a new low. And the Doctor at this stage of her life I don't believe she would say something like that, and it just felt very out of character. I never felt that there was a definitive moment where I was like, okay, she is the Doctor. Or maybe there was, I can't remember that definitive moment. Maybe someone else that does, the 13th Doctor knows that moment where they're like, oh, she's the Doctor. I never got that moment from her. And yeah, just her Doctor, her era just left a bad taste in my mouth. And the Timeless Child is my least favorite concept the show has ever done, and it's not the 13th Doctor's fault, that's Chibnall's fault, but that did happen during the 13th Doctor's thing, and they didn't ignore or anything. I just do not like that concept, and I felt like this Doctor, which in this era was just a waste of time, of useless information that will forever be in my brain, information I do not need in my brain, because it's all bad. I don't like it. I don't like the 13th Doctor. I don't like anything from the 13th Doctor. Hopefully Big Finish could maybe save the 13th Doctor in some way for me, because I know there are people out there that like her. Yeah, and overall, she is this 13th Doctor is last on my list, and it's a shame because the first female Doctor could have been something very interesting. The Doctor's been a man for most of his life, and seeing how he would adapt into becoming a woman for the first time in like 1,000-something years could have been like an interesting concept, an interesting story. But unfortunately, Chibnall just made it very uninteresting with uninteresting stories and bad writing everywhere. And like I said, maybe Big Finish could make me like the 13th Doctor more. But for right now, she is my least favorite Doctor, and she is last on my list. Coming in at number 13, I have the 5th Doctor. The 5th Doctor is just so bland and forgettable to me. He also has so many stories that I do not like. There were some moments where I felt like he was the Doctor, but not nearly enough. He kind of has the same problem with the 13th Doctor, but not as bad, because there are a couple things where it's like, okay, this is the Doctor. I don't know, just wasn't good for me. The 5th Doctor is just super boring, bad to super boring stories, even on Big Finish, in my opinion. I never liked this Doctor, and I tried giving him a chance because of Big Finish, but I never vibed with this Doctor. I think it could be because of the performance and the stories, or mix of both. I don't know. But it's disappointing that the Doctor after Tom Baker wasn't better. Coming in at number 12, I have the 7th Doctor. The 7th Doctor was so inconsistent and not in a good 12th Doctor-y way. His stories and performance were all over the place. I felt like this Doctor was just too cartoony at times, while being at other times very dark and sometimes feeling like the Master even. Not a great combination. The 7th Doctor also hinted at something like the Timeless Child happening during his era, which, horrible. I don't like that concept. If you're hinting at that concept, that's not going to help me like your era. The 7th Doctor had some interesting Big Finish stories, like The Enemy of the Daleks and Damaged Goods, but I don't like his Doctor, and I dislike most of his stories. I also thought the 7th Doctor was good in The Power of the Doctor, so maybe he could come back as a new Doctor, like David Tennant is doing right now. He didn't really give off that cartoonishy, villainous vibe to him in The Power of the Doctor, so maybe he could come back and redeem himself. I'm sure he's never going to come back. And I know there's a lot of people that like the 7th Doctor. This is just my opinion, but I didn't really like the 7th Doctor. So the next 3 Doctors are the Doctors I just find to be okay. Coming in at number 11, I have the War Doctor. With the War Doctor, I only watched the 50th anniversary for him, and I did see him in a couple of comics, so I'm only judging him based on those things, and it's not a lot that I have seen him in and read his version of the Doctor in, so I know there's a lot of material out there, and I think there is some Big Finish things with him, but I'm not sure. I never got a chance to really hear it. Similar with the Fugitive Doctor, there's just not enough there for me to really have a connection with this Doctor, but I thought John Hurt did an excellent job with the role in the 50th anniversary, and his character arc in that special was done excellently in my opinion. Coming in at number 10, I have the 9th Doctor. There's nothing that's bad about the 9th Doctor, and he has some great moments and great stories too during Series 1, but his performance sometimes felt off to me, and it could be over the top at times as well. Something with this Doctor never really blew me away, but he always felt like the Doctor, and you could see the pain in his eyes from the Time War. I think Eccleston just needed more time with the role, but we all know what happened with his fallout with the show. And also, I don't like any of his Big Finish stories as well. I just don't feel anything for him. Coming in at number 9, I have the 6th Doctor. The 6th Doctor really was saved by Big Finish, because without Big Finish, he would probably be near last on my list. Hopefully Big Finish could do the same thing for the 13th Doctor, but only time will tell. The 6th Doctor was just too mean at times and really out of character in his own show. I think he did have moments where he felt like the Doctor in his show, like when he was on trial in The Ultimate Foe, and I liked him being paired up with the 2nd Doctor as well. I think he really did feel like the Doctor in that moment, really bounced off with the 2nd Doctor too, but for the most part, it wasn't good on the TV side of things in my opinion. On the Big Finish side of things, he was excellent and giving great stories. I think at the end of the day, overall, he was just okay, and it's a shame he wasn't given better material to work with when he was on TV, because he did put a lot of energy into the character, and I know he really liked the show as well. Now I am moving on to the Doctors I find to be good. Coming in number 8, I have the 1st Doctor. The 1st Doctor. The only 1st Doctor in my mind. I feel a lot of fans give the first Doctor a bad rap because they feel he was too cold and mean at times, but to me the first Doctor really felt like an alien who was getting used to the fact that Earth is a place worth protecting and how precious life is. Also, his relationship with Susan was heartwarming. This was the beginning of the man he would later become, and I like all the different versions of the first Doctor we have gotten because they all feel like the first Doctor to me. I feel the first Doctor is the only Doctor you can also just recast, and they've done that I think about 3 to 4 times. No, they've done it 3 times. 2 times. They've only done 2 times. There's been 3 actors overall who have played the first Doctor. The first Doctor has a good heart who is learning what being the Doctor really means, and I appreciate where he started out. Plus, he always had like a kind heart and can even have his lighthearted moments too. The first Doctor is really underrated along with his stories. Plus, I love the speech that he gives to Susan as she leaves the TARDIS. Coming in number 7, I have the second Doctor. The second Doctor really defined what it meant to be the Doctor, and a lot of the core traits of what makes the Doctor come from him. This also is the first Doctor that introduced the sonic screwdriver, which is something that's very iconic in the show. I feel the second Doctor really was a lot of fun, and his dynamic with his companions were a lot of fun too. The second Doctor has many great moments and great stories. I think my only problem with the second Doctor was sometimes he was a bit of a scaredy cat. Not often, but there's some times where he seemed like he was just too scared to do things. And he needed to be a bit more serious at times as well, but still a good Doctor, and he defined what it meant to be the Doctor. Coming in at number 6, I have the 11th Doctor. The 11th Doctor in many ways feels like the second Doctor, but with the pain of the Time War and the pain of like losing so much over the years. I really like the whole vibe that he was having, like with being a grandfather but in a young man's body thing that was throughout like his whole that was his thing. Like he felt like an old man, but he was an old man. He was very young. The 11th Doctor brought a whole range of emotions, and it was all down to Matt Smith's amazing performance. He's a great actor, and you could really see it in his performance as the 11th Doctor, because he was silly at times, he was angry at times, he was crying at times. Matt Smith has a lot of range, and he brought that amazing range to the role of the Doctor. The 11th Doctor also had a great dynamic with his companions, probably one of the best dynamics Doctor Who has ever had, like with Amy, Rory, and the Doctor and the Outside River come in sometimes as well. Also, this Doctor got married too, and I thought that was pretty cool with River. I really liked River and the Doctor together, and the whole relationship that they had through series 6 and series 5, 6, and 7. Their relationship growing and getting to know each other more. I liked that whole thing that was going on with the 11th Doctor. Also, the 11th Doctor has like some of my favorite moments of all of Doctor Who, like when he had the speech during the Rings of Akatan. I think I'm pronouncing that right. You know what I'm talking about, where he's talking to that parasite and it's trying to suck out information from the Doctor, and the Doctor just gives that long speech with the beautiful music in the background. That's such like an emotional scene and one of my all-time favorite Doctor Who moments. Also, when the Doctor is regenerating, I really like his speech about how we all change and it's good. You just gotta keep moving as long as you remember the person you used to be, or something like that. I think I'm butchering this speech, but that's another one of my all-time favorite Doctor Who moments, and it came from the 11th Doctor. I wish the 11th Doctor wasn't so silly at times because his silliness got a little too extreme and got even to borderline cringe at times, but I still very enjoyed the 11th Doctor. Okay, so the Doctors up next are the best of the best in my opinion, and I feel like these actors were born to play the role, and they killed it. Coming in at number 5, I have the third Doctor. Everyone likes to call this the James Bond Doctor, and there are definitely some similarities to James Bond and with this era of the Doctor. But at the third Doctor's core, he feels like the Doctor. I love the idea of the Doctor being stuck somewhere, and I hope they do that again at some point in the future with him being like trapped somewhere for an entire season. I think that could make for an interesting concept. Maybe this time don't have it be stuck on Earth like it was with the third Doctor. I also like the way the third Doctor interacted with Unit as well. The third Doctor also, in my opinion, has the best dynamic with the Master out of all the other Doctors. I think it really showed like the frenemy relationship that they had with each other, and it really showed during the third Doctor's era. Also, in my opinion, the third Doctor has the best death of any of the Doctors, in my opinion. The Third Doctor is an action-packed, iconic, and great Doctor. Coming at number 4, I have the 12th Doctor. Now, the 12th Doctor it's another one where I think he gets a bit of a bad rap sometimes, probably due to people feeling like he's inconsistent. But I think that's what kind of like makes him interesting, because he goes on a bit of an arc throughout his era, and his entire journey is, if he's questioning of who he is as a man, and like, is he a good man? Is he a good person? It's like that whole journey through. I like that journey that the 12th Doctor went on. He went on like a character arc, and he faces a lot of demons throughout his era. I don't really like Series 9, but even during that series, there were some really great episodes and great moments from the 12th Doctor, like that speech during the Zygon invasion. Like, one of the best moments of all of Doctor Who, in my opinion. Peter Capaldi was an excellent actor. I really hope he comes back, because 12th Doctor, in my opinion, he's just freaking amazing. He also did great with monologues, and Stephen Moffat really let him just fly away with like different speeches and monologues, and he's the Doctor that did that a lot. And I think Stephen Moffat noticed that like that was something Peter Capaldi could really do, and they made sure that he did quite a few speeches. I really thought he would stay longer as the Doctor as well, because he was a fan of the show since the 60s. I know he was like the president of the Doctor Who fan club or something like that, Peter Capaldi. But the 12th Doctor had an amazing run. Hopefully he comes back during the 60th, and hopefully we see him again in the Big Finish audios as well. Coming in number 3, I have the 4th Doctor. I think everyone can agree that the 4th Doctor is the most iconic Doctor. Well, it depends on when you grew up. Like, people that grew up with classic Who, the 4th Doctor was their Doctor. The people that grew up with modern Who, the 10th Doctor is their Doctor. But I think the 4th Doctor is very iconic because he was on the show for so long. He had so many great stories. The 4th Doctor also had so many great companions as well, and he also had a unique companion. He had a Time Lord companion, and that was something unique at the time. Also, the 4th Doctor has a good amount of Big Finish stories. I like all the Big Finish stories pretty much with the 4th Doctor. I'm going to be honest, I didn't like his final season. I don't think many people did, and I think he kind of funded it near the end. But for most of his time on TV and on Big Finish, he was a great Doctor. And the 4th Doctor is just very iconic and such a great Doctor. Coming in number 2, I have the 10th Doctor. Now, the 10th Doctor is the Doctor I grew up with, so I'm a bit biased here, but he just had fantastic stories. David Tennant did an amazing job as the 10th Doctor. There's a reason why that the David Tennant 10th Doctor era is the most popular. Some of my all-time favorite Doctor Who moments come from the 10th Doctor. He gave a bit more of a unique take to the role, with him being a bit more human than other Doctors, which some people feel like it rubs them the wrong way. I don't feel that way. I feel like his performance was just a bit more unique, and I felt David Tennant did a great job with playing the role as the Doctor. And like I said, the stories overall were really great. The companions are really great. Also, his Doctor had like team-ups with Torchwood and Sarah Jane. Also, his Big Finish audios are pretty good for the most part, but the 10th Doctor really has the great stories and great performances on his actual TV show. But this was my Doctor. He wasn't the first Doctor I ever watched. Christopher Eccleston was during the 9th Doctor, but the 10th Doctor is what really made me fall in love with the show. His stories, the way David Tennant was acting, and the way he performed everything, and just everything about the 10th Doctor is really great in my opinion, and he's my second favorite Doctor. I might be a bit biased, but I just think generally his stories, the writing and everything, the acting was just all really done well. Coming in number 1, I have the 8th Doctor. I love everything about the 8th Doctor, and I highly recommend listening to his audios, books, and other stuff that he's in. It's all fantastic. Some of the best Doctor Who stories of all time, in my opinion, come from Big Finish with the 8th Doctor and just other stuff that he's in. He is fantastic. His Doctor also goes on a bit of a journey, and you can see how his Doctor changes over time as the audios continue. Paul McGann, he's been playing the 8th Doctor for over 20 years now, and he's done that non-stop, and it's just amazing how consistent he's been. And the journey that the 8th Doctor has gone over the years is just, you never really see that from the Doctor. Usually the Doctor just kind of stays the same, but the 8th Doctor is like three different doctors into one, and it's like an expanded character arc from what Peter Capaldi was, because his doctor changed over time, and like Capaldi, the Eighth Doctor has changed over time, but we've had longer time to see that growth and change over so many audios. Also, his doctor reunited with his granddaughter Susan, which is something Modern Who needs to do, and his doctor experiences a bit of the Time War as well. I thought he was good in his TV movie. I thought the TV movie was trash, but he was the bright spot in it. And also introduced the idea of the Doctor being half human, which is something I also hate, along with the Timeless Children. But his TV movie's trash. I thought he was good in the TV movie, but he was great in The Night of the Doctor. I feel like McGann takes the best parts of every Doctor and he makes the role his own. The Eighth Doctor, in my opinion, is the best Doctor of all time. So that was my list. I'm sure the Eighth Doctor being number one is probably like kind of surprising to a lot of people. A lot of people don't really talk about McGann. Like I said, I highly recommend listening to his Big Finish work. And I haven't listened to all of it. I mean, there's a ton of them out there, but I've listened to all of his best stories. And his best stories are some of my favorite Doctor Who stories of all time. And I'm sure everyone has a different opinion on who they like as the Doctor, who they dislike as the Doctor. And I'm sure there's Doctor Who fans who don't really like the majority of the Doctors at all, and mainly just like the new Doctors. Whatever everyone's opinion is, I respect it all. I'll probably do an updated list after Ncuti regenerates into the 16th Doctor. It's crazy. We're going to have two Doctors. We're going to have the 14th and 15th after next year. And David Tennant's going to be the 14th Doctor, apparently, according to Russell T Davies, which should be interesting to see how all that plays out. I'm just happy that I'm like excited talking about Doctor Who again. Chibnall era is over. The 13th Doctor's era is over. And now we're moving on to hopefully better things.